Hello, my most amazing artists. Today we're going to create art inspired by the artist Georges Seurat, who was a French draftsman and painter interested in the science behind art. He produced many paintings using a technique he founded called pointillism, in which tiny contrasting dots of color are placed side by side on the canvas. Up close, the painting appears as individual dots. You can start to see there's individual little dots in there. And if you hold it further away, you can see that the eye mixes the colors into a whole scene. His masterpiece, Sunday Afternoon on the Island of Le Grand Jatte, is a huge work painted entirely using this method. Along with pointillism, Seurat's experimentation with, you guessed it, color baby color, brought some new ideas and concepts into the art world. He felt color could create harmony and emotion in painting, similar to how a musician creates harmony in music. So let's see what we're going to need to get started on this project. Crayons and or markers are great materials to always have on hand. I'm going to also be using a cup or a lid to trace some circles with. Of course, you could draw them on your own, but it's a little easier to have a nice consistent shape. I'm also going to be using a Sharpie to demo, but you can always use a pencil. And then option is some paint and a Q-tip. So if you've seen these hanging around the house, then you're in luck and you can use these to create some really great points. Also, I created a whole color wheel of craft paint, which looks beautiful, but it's also a great way to experiment with color. And then you can even create a picture when you're finished using the same kind of method. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to start with some basic composition as always, and then we're going to talk a little bit about color theory. So let's take a quick peek at our paper. I'm holding it like a bathtub, which means I'm holding it the horizontal way. And we're going to start by making some evergreen branches and some ornaments, some basic shape ornaments. All right, so let's begin with about halfway down your paper, a diagonal line that reaches towards the top. Not touching the top, just reaching. Now the same thing on the opposite side. I'm just going to come in on a little bit lower angle and slant as well into the center. Okay, now it's time to create some evergreen branches. And I like to do this using all the greens I can find that are in my artistic repertoire over here in my containers of stuff. So simply by choosing all different shades and layers of green, we're going to create this evergreen effect. So you can see here, you can simply make letter V, just like that. I kind of like the fact that my marker is split. Then we can make letter V all the way up my line. Same thing on the opposite side. Kind of looks like arrows. So make sure that all the bottom points facing downward on both of your lines. Now I'm going to simply switch markers and choose a different shade of green and do the same thing. So we're going to repeat this several times, and you can even mix in crayons if you want, or your colorful art palette of paint if you have it. And you can just simply keep creating those lines. So I like mixing lots of colors in just to give it a realistic effect. So you can see they look like those evergreen branches that you might see on the variety of winter trees that we talked about last week. Okay, great. I think this is looking pretty good. I could always go back and add more if I want to later. And now what I'm going to do is use my lid to do some tracing. So we are going to be talking about analogous colors today. And analogous just means basically neighbors. So we have our primary colors, we have our secondary colors, and then we have our tertiary colors, which are all the colors kind of in between. And when you look at a color, you can see that there are two shades next to it. So if this is red, we have a red orange, and then we have like a purple red. So sometimes you can see on the crayons, we see red violet, or we see different hyphenated names. And that's because they are analogous. That means they're next to each other on the color wheel. So if I was creating an analogous family, I could use the red orange, the red, and then a purple red or the violet red also. So it's a simple way of just looking at neighbors. Again, we have purple, we have a purple with blue mixed into it, And then we also have a blue. So it doesn't matter what order you choose to create. It's just pick a color and then use the two that are next to you. So pick any color. We have two that also are what we call analogous. You can work your way around the color wheel. So in order to do this, I'm just going to create 4 circles, and I'm going to arrange them in a way that I think are kind of interesting. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm just creating the first one up close to the branch. The second one, actually, I'm going to make it off the paper a little bit, and that's just to also create some variety and interest. So I still have a shape here, nearly the whole thing, but I wanted to have some of it look like it's continuing off the edge of the paper. I might put another one over here, and you can create at minimum, we're going to do 4 together, but you can also, if you want to save some space to try a 5th, you can add a bonus, we'll call it a bonus, to make the whole color wheel on one of these. Okay, so this is what we're doing today. We're doing the analogous colors, and we're just going to create little rectangle tops on the tops of these so that they can now connect with an upside down letter J, facing either way. This one is just going to connect up because we don't have a branch. Okay, so here is how we're going to now start with pointillism. So remember, tiny dots of color. So whether you're using markers, crayons, or paint, in this case, we are going to be using the dots of color to create our effect. So again, back to the color wheel, pick a color that you want to use in your creation. So if I pick red, that's going to be the center, and it's also going to be the center of my ornament. So if you're using marker, you're simply just going to make a stripe of color using dots. So I'm just holding the marker and stamping it. So it's kind of a unique way of using an art tool that we use all the time, but now we're giving it a little bit of a twist. So just stamp, not coloring, just stamping. Now, because I have pretty basic colors of markers, I might choose a little bit of red to make my red orange. I can add a little bit of red and orange together. And on the other side, I could have my purple and red together. So I like to sometimes even make a few red dots in there, just like George Seurat would have. It kind of fools the eye into thinking there's some variations of color. Then, of course, you would just add some orange, in this case, on this side. And you're going to add lots and lots of dots. I'm just showing you a few right here. Or you could on this side do some purple and red together. So now if you're using crayons and you actually have the red violet or you have the red orange, you can do that. Or if you're using paints, I have a red orange over here and I have that purple red over here. So I might use some of that in creating some of my pointillism dots as well. So paint, you can see, creates a little bit bigger dot, a little bit more space covered, but you can create the same kind of effect that you would if you were using your markers. It just adds a little bit of punch to your art. So here's some of the red mixed in both areas. And then on the opposite side, I'm going to add some of this violet and red together. So you can kind of see there's my first analogous ornament. So you're going to continue with this process, again, choosing variety of colors. Pick a color in the center and then choose 2 colors that are neighboring. So when you're finished, you will have all sorts of really beautiful analogous looking ornaments. So I hope you enjoyed learning about color and pointillism with Seurat and myself. Keep on creating.